Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission: to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club. El Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club. I love hearing that music because it means the weekend is closer, and it means we get to chat with our good friend Kent Wolgamott of the Lincoln Journal-Star. Hello, Kent.
Good afternoon.
Aren't you happy you don't have to go anywhere on Saturday, or are you committed somewhere else?
No, I am very happy I don't have to go anywhere on Saturday. I'm even happier that I don't have to write anything on Saturday.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, that first road game.
Yes,
It is.
You sit back and just watch the game.
Yep.
And, nothing else, to do. And as soon as the game's done, you can go about your merry business.
Mm-hmm.
You can write about other things like music or movies.
Yeah, or we could not write anything and have an actual day off.
There you go.
No days off, Kent.
And and I will not be watching the game in real time. I will use the magic of recording and then watch it in an hour after, once it's 2/3 of the way through. You can just zip right through it that way.
Now, Kent, before you do this, I have heard that if the game is still going on, you have to sit through the commercials. I don't think that you are able to fast forward on Peacock. Yes.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Then I will be waiting until the game is over.
Yes. So watch it. I think when the game's over, then they edit it down to like a 2-hour version where they get rid of all the commercials.
Because the point here is to not sit through the commercials and have time.
Yeah.
Yes,
indeed.
I believe that is correct. When I successfully went spoiler-free for the Maryland game, I believe that is correct, because when I got home, the game was long over.
Yeah.
And I watched it. And yes, there were commercials that you couldn't. I mean, it's one of those, anytime
60-second ad.
Yeah, it's
type
one of those
things.
60-second where they put the little clock thingy in the corner.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
I'm
not.
pulling up a replay of
but
a game right now. I want to see what it
But
does.
it's not the full 3 minutes, breaks in when you're watching in real time. So you are cutting down a little bit.
But yep, there. Sure enough, there's the ad.
Yeah.
But when the game's over, you are able to fast forward though, and that's. Oh, that's Kent's phone. I thought I did something.
That's my phone.
So, yeah.
It's being held by Peacock.
Yeah, don't you dare try to fast forward through our commercials, Kent, says Peacock.
Are you going to attempt to do this without knowing the result?
Oh, absolutely.
Nice.
Oh,
I like it. What a challenge. The Kent
the system to do this is just don't look at the phone. I don't have any notifications. I shouldn't on the phone. And then don't turn on any kind of radio or TV or something where the score might show up.
So this is me as a 27-year-old. Kent, what the hell are you going to do for 4 hours if you don't have your phone or TV or radio?
Oh, I will have TV or stereo or whatever, right? I just won't be on a channel where you might happen to get a score, like HBO or whatever is not going to run the Husker score.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
he's
fair.
just not going to be watching another college football game or anything on ESPN where they have the bottom line.
Hey, maybe he'll watch whatever your movie pick is for next week. Yeah.
I'm excited to share it.
Kill two birds with one stone.
Well, speaking of movie picks, this week's movie is the 1982 coming-of-age comedy Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes, it is, bud.
And I mean, the thing's 42 years old, which is, when I say that, wow.
How old do you feel, old man?
Very old, very old.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows it's basically just, I mean, really, if you think about it, Kent, this is kind of the original high school teen R-rated comedy, right?
Well, there were a whole bunch of them right around this time. Right?
True. Porky's, yeah.
Porky's, all of those. They were all about the same time. This is the good one.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes,
the one that, I mean, you're not going to go watch Porky's again from 1981 or 2 in 2024. You will watch this movie again. And that tells you something about the quality of it.
Yeah, Kent, my takeaway when I finished it was I think this might be the best high school movie. You know, and
really?
that was my takeaway. I think
better than Superbad. I know you like Superbad.
See, Superbad's my favorite. I guess
better than Dazed and Confused.
Best one from this era, I think, at the very least. I do. Yeah, those are among my favorites. This movie is hysterical. It is just so damn funny. The thing that I'd forgotten about is that it's like the whole school year. You know, Superbad's one night. Dazed and Confused is one night or one day. This is, it starts at the beginning of the school year and then it ends at the end of the school year.
I guess that's where the fast times part comes from.
Indeed, it just kind of flies on by.
Well, and you know why that is? This movie is based on the book of Cameron Crowe, who then went on to be a very successful film director and, made one of the great rock movies, Almost Famous.
Amazing movie.
Great movie.
Cameron Crowe went undercover in high school when he was like 21 or 22 and wrote this book, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, that then got adapted into the movie. And the book covered the school year where he was, quote, undercover. And even some of the characters are kind of based on the people that he knew, and their names are even kind of similar. So if you knew the people, apparently you say, oh, that was this guy and that is this guy. So that's why it goes a whole year, right? Is the source material.
And the crazy thing is they do it in 90 minutes.
Yeah, it flies by.
I mean,
it would have been slightly longer had it not had to be edited to not get an X rating.
What did they cut out?
The scene in the bathhouse where with Jennifer Jason Leigh and I can't think of the actor's name.
The Patino moment.
Yeah. That
yes, the Patino moment.
That was a longer and more explicit scene. There were also 2 or 3 other things that got cut because of they were going to give it an X rating. And then after that, then I think they trimmed it a little bit just for speed.
Pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The pacing of the movie is great. I mean, it starts and you figure out who the characters are very, very quickly. And, it's classic in terms of there's like these various cliques and, popular kids and whatever, the nerds and the football player who gets mad because of the car.
It's interesting that you talk about the pacing because I actually found the pacing kind of jarring and it took me out of it a little bit.
Because it was too fast?
It felt a little sudden.
It does fast forward. I mean, yeah, fast forwards months at a time.
I get that that's how they had to make it work, but it felt a bit, I think I would have been fine if it was a little longer, if it kind of transitioned into the different parts a little better than it did.
Yeah.
By the way,
remember when it was made, you weren't going to get a 2-hour teenage sex comedy.
No.
Right? 90 minutes was about max that they were going to let it run. And Universal almost didn't release this.
Like when it was already made and edited?
It was finished and they might have shelved it because it did really badly at test screenings because, they didn't show it to the right audiences. They showed it in freaking Orange County, which is
these 30-year-old women like this movie.
Correct. And so they about shelved it, and then they only released it in like 400 theaters.
Interesting.
Is a movie that has become much better. It did well, but it wasn't a giant hit when it came out. But it was, maybe top 20 or 30 movies of that year. But then once again, when it came out on VHS in probably 84, 5, right? At the dawn of, or at the
pause button.
At the peak of VHS, then it became this big hit. And, it's now it's in the film registry.
I saw that when I was looking at the Wikipedia page.
The Library of Congress of films that needed to be preserved. So that's kind of a journey.
I know Josh just made this joke about the pause button, but when this movie came out on VHS, did the pool scene, was that the thing that carried this movie to make as many people watch it as they did?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you can generalize to say as many people, but I'll guarantee you there's an entire generation of boys that certainly watched it for
it's the most famous nude scene in the history of movies.
It is. Every time.
If it's not, it's top 5.
It is so damn. I mean, I remember
in so many things.
I knew about it before I saw the movie.
Me
and
too.
like I'd basically seen the scene without seeing the scene because they would show it on VH1 or Comedy Central, but they would show it on those best week ever, best year ever type things where they would talk about the scene and the impact that it had on, someone that was
I mean, to this day there are people who hear the cars moving in stereo, and that's exactly where their mind takes them.
I wonder how many people discovered the Cars or became fans of the Cars because of this movie.
No, they were huge at the time. This soundtrack is huge central. It starts with the Go-Go's. It's got Tom Petty. It's got the Cars. It is a perfect soundtrack of its time.
Yeah, Ken, you know what? If you were making a movie today about this year, I feel like people would say the soundtrack is too cute with the songs that you picked. Like, that's how good the soundtrack was for this movie.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly, commercially, the bigger artists like Petty and the Go-Go's and didn't let them use it to sell the album, right? Those songs aren't on the soundtrack album, but they're in the movie because they wanted to let the song, because they got the movie, right? The people that were licensing the song said, yeah, you can use it for that, but you can't sell it. But I think it would be really difficult to make that soundtrack again this year too, because of the way that music is. You don't have those cultural, everybody in the country has heard this kind of song stuff anymore, right?
100%.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
By the way, going back to the original X rating and what was cut out, and like Kent said, it was the scene in the pool house, but and there was actual disappointment because, and now I got to find it. For some reason I had it right here and now it's lost. I got to look it up again. But the idea was to make it it was supposed to talk about just the angst and the awkwardness of teenage sexuality. Because remember, her first encounter is with someone that's
way older than her,
and thus experienced. Whereas this is
dude,
a little bit different. In fact, Jennifer Jason Leigh said that it by recutting it eliminated the sense of awkward hesitancy between the two characters, and instead. Now, I will say this. How they edited it was funny because, of course, you hear Jackson Brown, and then all of a sudden the music just kind of, and Damone
see his feet shake a little bit.
Damone is finished, and that's all she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
So at least the way they did it, at least
honestly, it's very realistic.
It made for a funny, but I would have liked to have seen the original cut just to see how much it changes that encounter between those two characters, because you wonder if it, does it make one more sympathetic or one less sympathetic? Exactly, because it was more, dare I say, more of a comedic scene based on how quick he went, and the original cut probably was telling a different story.
So you are correct, and on the Jennifer Jason Leigh thing, I think it's interesting to note she was actually 19 when they made this movie. So I think she might have been the youngest of the principal cast members. Like Judge Reinhardt's play, as is the case with almost every teenage movie, Judge Reinhardt was like 24, 25 when he made this movie. He's not 18, So they're older than the kids they're playing. So they don't really look like high school kids, with the exception of her, I think.
Yeah, she was born in 1962, so when the movie was made, she would have been 19.
Yeah.
Sean Penn would have been
He was born in 1960.
1960, so he was 2 years
So he'd
older.
been 21-ish.
And Phoebe Cates was born in 1963.
And by the way, that John
so she'd be the youngest one, right?
63.
I
I guess
think
she was
Jennifer
probably right at
Jason
18.
Lee's a little younger than she is.
Wait a
but
minute, did I read something
they're,
wrong?
they're the point there is none of them are high school age kids, because you can't make that movie with teenagers.
No.
And by the way, so John just said Sean Penn, which is the first time we have mentioned his name. Spicoli, obviously, one of the more famous characters in movie history. So this was the first time I'd seen this movie in quite some time. The relationship that Spicoli has with Mr. Hand this time is easily my favorite part of the movie in terms of the dynamic between characters. They are so funny together. I mean, it starts at the very beginning when he shows up and he's late. Of course, the famous scene where he orders the pizza. And then, I mean, I think their last scene together is, I mean, it's just a wonderful, it's very funny, but it's also like, hey, you took something from this as well. I thought that Sean Penn, I've never been a huge Sean Penn fan. I've seen him in, I don't know, a handful of movies. I think that he is, like, Kent, where does this rank? I think you might have said last week, you think this is his best performance, right?
Oh, I was kind of joking about that, but it's one of his best.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about it is, people are thinking, he went full-on method actor after that. No, he was in full-on method actor on this one. Apparently, during the prom or high school dance scene, when they're getting high and then they all roll out of the van, and then he was apparently baked.
Nice.
Can you imagine Matthew Broderick in this role?
Is that who it was supposed to be?
He was originally cast.
Wow.
Or at least he was offered. He was offered, but did not accept. Listen, I'm not saying Matthew Broderick is a bad actor, but there's just, I mean, there's something about the way Sean Penn looks. He just has that
owns
look
the
on
role,
it.
man.
And he does. He absolutely
everything
owns
about
the
it.
role.
The way he talks, the way he looks, the way he dresses, the way he acts.
It was really good.
He looks
casting.
high the entire movie.
He probably is.
The entire
He probably was.
Yeah.
But Ray Walston as Mr. Hand
Oh, he's so funny.
is so good, because while he's like the only sane person around
in the whole movie.
But yet he's, of course, playing the square, if you will. But he does it in such a way where you actually, normally in these types of movies, that character is like, oh, I can't stand that guy. I can't wait till he gets his.
Exactly.
You don't have those feelings about him.
Nope.
Because you understand what he's going through. I mean, when he's passing out all the different grades and, his F, F, F. What are all you people high? And it just how he goes about things. He doesn't do it over the top.
Yeah.
But it feels believable.
It's like he's playing a straight man in a movie that didn't necessarily need a straight man.
You know what he reminded me of, Kent? He reminds me of like a teacher where in the moment you're so annoyed by them, and then you get years removed and you're like, man, that was a good teacher. And he really gave us some leeway. Like, that is what that character is. He cares about his students even though they're all idiots.
I would agree with that. And now you guys are not going to get this, but for we older folks, there's a bit, even his casting is a bit of a joke, because what he was best known for was being the title character of My Favorite Martian. And so he was a 60s TV star playing basically an alien who had come to Earth and is living with a family. So, there was some of that. And he was, I guess people don't, so long ago, he was a really good Broadway actor. He got nominated for Tonys and all kinds of
wow.
stuff. So he's a good actor, but he's probably at this point most remembered for maybe My Favorite Martian, but probably most for this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see his face and you're just like, oh, it's Mr. Hand, and it is, the interaction between those two is it's the funny thing is Sean Penn gets the, he's the title actor, but his role is kind of more on the periphery because it's really about, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Phoebe Cates, Judge Reinhold, and Rat and Damone.
Yeah, it's about those five characters.
It's really about those five.
But Spicoli shows up and steals the scene every time.
Yeah, and the Spicoli stuff is kind of just like the sidebar, story. But
it's the B or C plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a very memorable B or C plot.
And you needed that because otherwise then you've got a really just a standard teen romance kind of thing, right? This way, it's bigger and better. I don't know if you guys noticed all the actors that went on to be famous that had virtually no lines. So you had Nick Cage. Did you see him?
No.
Flipping burgers with when Judge Reinhold was running the burger stand. He was at one of the guys flipping burgers, and he was.
But you won't. That's right.
Because his real name, right? In the credits, obviously Forrest Whitaker was the football player gone berserk.
That football scene is so funny.
That was really funny.
And also they play it so well with let's just vandalize the car and make it seem like it's the rival. Such a good moment.
And Eric Stoltz from Mask, among others, was Spicoli's stoner pal, right?
So is Anthony Edwards, which I just realized looking at the Wikipedia page from ER.
Yes.
Yep. And here's the weird one that you guys wouldn't have recognized the name probably, and you had to watch the credits all the way through to get to it. Mrs. Vargas, the blonde woman that gets introduced to him briefly in the party scene or the dance. His name was Lana Clarkson. She's the woman that Phil Spector murdered.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Wow.
Whoa.
I don't know this.
Do you know who Phil Spector is?
No.
Oh, Nick, you're of music. The Wall of Sound?
No.
Oh, wow.
Phil Spector,
famous music producer.
Arranger, whatever of the 60s.
He did Let It Be.
Oh, okay.
The original version of Let It Be.
Yeah.
He murdered this woman in his house.
Oh, no.
20 years ago? 15 years ago?
03. Good take, Nick. Murder bad.
Yeah, very good.
Hard to argue with that.
Clarkson.
By the way, one other, when Brad is delivering the seafood and comes across the beautiful girl in the Corvette, and then she kind of looks and laughs at him because he's still wearing this Long John Silver's hat. Nancy Wilson from Heart. Ann and Nancy Wilson.
That's awesome.
That's Nancy Wilson.
The reason for that is Nancy Wilson and Cameron Crowe, they weren't married yet, but they got married shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
They are subsequently divorced, but that was why Nancy Wilson ended up in the movie.
Yeah.
By the way, the arc of the Judge Reinhold character is so funny because at the beginning of it, he's working at this place at the mall, and he's like the most popular. It seems like he's one of the most popular kids because he has money. And then by the end of it, he hates his life and he hates everything that he has to do. I think because it's like everyone else is kind of going up and he's just going straight
and
down.
his is going right like this.
But he did, he has a good imagination, and for that we should all be thankful.
He does,
and we have kind of bookended Judge Reinhold's career here in the last month.
Yes, we have.
We watched the Beverly Hills Cop movie that is his most recent thing, and this was really his first big movie.
First thing I ever saw him in was Seinfeld. He was the close talker, was he not, on Seinfeld?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Oh, what a character.
Well, yeah, I mean, it still holds up very well.
Oh, yeah, very funny.
I don't know if it holds up very well.
In what ways doesn't it?
Oh, Nick, don't do the thing.
Okay.
Come on.
It's important to bring up.
That's not what holding up means.
Yes, it is. Holding up means you can watch it in any year and it still makes sense contextually within culture.
Yeah.
I think it's a good slice of life or whatever of what the 80s was. I think it's great for that.
Yeah.
But there's language and stuff used.
But that doesn't mean it does. That doesn't have to say that it doesn't hold up well.
Then I guess I'm confused about
which
what the
language.
definition of holding up.
Well, I mean, Spicoli drops the F word.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but college Oh, well, okay, but one time.
No, and I get that, but I'm just saying I don't think it holds up because of that, because that wouldn't be like it couldn't be done today. That doesn't hold up in today's
right, but I mean
standards of society. That's all I mean by hold up. I'm not saying that it didn't make sense in the 80s. I'm not judging something in the past based off of my current lens. I'm just saying I don't know if that means it. I'm saying just because of that, I'm not sure if that means it holds up.
Well, but when I think of holding up, it's just, is
it still funny?
It's still funny, but it's relatable because even though there's no cell phones, there's no computers, none of that stuff, just the natural human interaction and the awkwardness of, I guess maybe one thing that wouldn't hold up is nowadays kids just swipe left or swipe right and talk to people over the internet versus, actually going out in public and asking for phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just the concept of wanting to take somebody out, exploring sexuality, those types of things. Those are constants that are still in existence today.
It's the human experience.
Let me throw one other one in that resonates differently today than it did up until 3 years ago or 2 years ago, is the abortion subplot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's true.
I thought that was an interesting inclusion for it being so cavalier is the wrong word, but just brought up so casually in a movie that came out at this time, because in the period I grew up in, that was always kind of a taboo thing to even bring up and talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie from the 80s was just talking about it.
What's the other movie from around this time that has abortion as a big subplot? Dirty Dancing or Grease or something? I don't remember which of them. Yeah,
but that was and that was this movie was basically 10 years after Roe.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So it had become it had not yet become the politicized issue that it did, has since the movie came out. And
I've never
with the Dobbs decision, in some places you couldn't do that.
No. And like you said, Ken, it would be so politicized that people would think that the director is making an argument for or against.
Correct.
Just by including it in the movie.
I had no idea that this was never not a political thing.
Yeah.
I've always thought it was just because that's the world I grew up in.
Nope.
No, not at this point.
Yeah, certainly not at that point.
I mean, there was always opposition to Roe, right? There was annual March for Life in Washington and all of that, but it wasn't this bitter partisan political fight over it. Yeah.
I don't honestly remember, Kent, and not that I was, paying that close of attention, but like if you think back to Reagan Carter, Reagan Mondale,
And
Bush, Bush. I don't remember that being a big debated topic in those.
It wasn't, but that's when it started to get on the political agenda.
Sure.
When the if you want to break it down, when the Republican embraced the evangelicals and the Christian right, that's what made abortion way more of an issue. And that started with, what was it, Jerry Falwell and those people, Pat Robertson in the 80s, but really sort of geared up mid 90s.
I was going to say, not the midterms in 94.
It turned into a mainstream political talking point.
I would have liked to have sat down and watched this movie with Pat Robertson.
Yeah.